Ian Castleberry, before we catch up with you, I was joking with you as we were talking before bringing you on, that I'm like, I would have been to you 4 minutes earlier, but we've had all these traffic issues that we've had to pass along because so many of our listeners are listening to us while driving. So hope you're doing better than the folks on the roadways are.
I'm not in my car, so I guess I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, man, and be thankful for that. Hey, first things first, Rockies general manager stepping down. According to Fox Sports, it's a mutual agreement. What are you making of this? How did it come to this?
Jeff Bridich, he stepped down as the Rockies general manager. Again, you said it was a mutual decision. The Rockies, they've only been in the postseason twice since Bridich took over as general manager in 2014. They made the postseason in 2017, 2018, but I think Jeff Bridich, it's difficult to build a pitching staff that works at Coors Field. Bridich's predecessors had difficulty doing that as well. But, is it better to assemble a pitching staff that keeps the ball on the ground? You don't want the ball going into the air that much at Coors Field. But the Rockies did develop several young pitchers, some of whom came through Asheville, and just haven't been able to put together a cohesive staff despite a talented staff that includes John Gray, Kyle Freeland, Antonio Senzatella, et cetera. But he's also made bad free agent signings. Ian Desmond, a 5-year deal worth $70 million. It's not Bridich's fault that Ian Desmond has opted out the past 2 seasons, but giving that kind of contract to a guy who and making him play a different position. Ian Desmond was a good player, but not a superstar player worth that kind of money. Bad money spent on bullpen, Wade Davis, Jake McGee, Brian Shaw. I think signings like that really killed him. But the most damning thing against Jeff Bridich is how he drove off and really botched the situations with both Troy Tulowitzki and Nolan Arenado, the franchise's 2 star players. Ended up trading them, in Tulowitzki's case, after saying he wasn't going to trade Tulowitzki. Then he traded him with Arenado, giving him sort of a shut up and dribble. Just, you play, don't worry about how I put together the team. And then in both of those trades, the worst part is that the Rockies didn't get the kind of prospects that you would expect in trading star players. You should get talent back in the return that can be foundational talent you can build around. And Bridich was never able to do that. So it was time for Bridich to go. I think to be completely fair to him, you have to point to the Colorado Rockies owner, Dick Monfort, as well. Monfort, not always willing to spend the money. I don't think he does a very good job in giving his front office an opportunity to succeed.
Man, it can be a short shelf life if you're not doing your job the way they're expecting you to do that. And so the Rockies switching out general managers, not that it matters. They're going to be probably in last place for the rest of the season. Sorry, Rockies fans, on that. All right, and so now we move on to some quality topics here. 2-time Cy Young Award winner Jacob deGrom looks like he's on a path for Cy Young number 3, dominating the Nationals on Saturday, but I guess who isn't dominating the Nationals these days? But he didn't just dominate from the mound, did he?
No, he didn't. Jacob deGrom, he did have an incredible game, 15 strikeouts, no walks in 9 innings, a complete game, only allowed 2 hits, no runs. But deGrom also got it done at the plate. He had 2 hits in the game, including a double. Jacob deGrom is batting .545 on the season. He's scored 3 runs, and he's driven in 2 runs, which is almost as many runs as the Mets have seemingly scored for Jacob deGrom in his 4 starts this season. The Mets are averaging 2.75 runs per game in deGrom's start. So if ever there was a pitcher who was entitled to, turn over clubhouse table after a game, he's only 2-2 despite a 0.31 ERA. How is he not 4-0? 50 strikeouts in just 29 innings. He's only allowing 4 hits per 9 innings, yet he has 2 losses on the season. So the Mets really need to score more runs for Jacob deGrom. We're going to talk about the NL East standings as well, and I think that's just a problem overall for the New York Mets, is that their offense is sorely lacking.
I didn't know he was hitting the ball like that. I got excited just to see Kershaw pinch hit.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I think Most baseball fans want to see the designated hitter. They don't really enjoy seeing the pitcher hit. But when a pitcher does hit well, it is really enjoyable to see it. You have to respect a player who can succeed both on the mound and at the plate.
Ian Castleberry playing with the Wise Guys. Of course, our baseball update with Ian presented by Happy Hill Restaurant. Thanks to the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines for bringing us Ian, by the way. And, you know, the AL East is stagnant early on, and the Mets are 8-8, tied with Philly atop the division. At least that was over the last weekend. You mentioned the Mets' offensive woes. Is that going to really prevent them from either winning or at least challenging for a division title this season?
It very well could. I mean, the Mets, they lead the division. They have the fewest runs allowed in the National League, 67 runs allowed, which is outstanding. However, the Mets have only scored 56 runs, which is DFL in the National League. They're just not scoring enough runs. So you have to think that as well as the Mets are pitching behind Jacob deGrom, they are going to have to start scoring more runs if they are going to maintain a lead in the NL East. Now, the question is, is it easier to add pitching or to add a bat at the trade deadline during the season? There are bats that figure to be available, but you also wonder how they fit on the Mets roster. For instance, we talked about the Rockies. Could they go after Trevor Story? Well, the Mets already have Francisco Lindor at shortstop. He needs to hit better and probably will. Somebody like Chris Bryant, they'd have to move him to the outfield. J.D. Davis is playing really well at third base. The same for Joey Gallo from the Texas Rangers. There are bats that the Mets can get, presuming they have the resources to get them. You have to think the Mets players, especially Francisco Lindor, James McCann, can turn around and hit better and produce more offense. But elsewhere in the division, you could probably say the same thing about the Atlanta Braves. Like, only Ronald Acuna is really hitting in that lineup right now. You have to figure other hitters in that lineup, Freddie Freeman, Ozzie Albies, etc., will turn it around. But for the Braves, I think their problem is a little more difficult to overcome because you're talking about starting pitching and bullpen as opposed to just their offense.
Yeah, for sure. As Ian Castleberry joining the Wise Guys presented by Happy Hill Restaurant. Yeah, the Mets, we'll wait and see, man. It's just deGrom, and, well, we'll wait and see on that right now. By the way, Fernando Tatis Jr. hits 2 home runs against Kershaw. Padres, Dodgers, we talked about this rivalry last weekend. And on the anniversary of his dad crushing 2 grand slams against the Dodgers in '99. Wow. And also we should point out Ian Tatis also trolled Dodgers pitcher Trevor Bauer while rounding the bases. So what did Tatis do during that home run trot, and how did Bauer react?
Yeah, quite a weekend for Fernando Tatis Jr. I mean, he's been injured. I think he didn't have a full spring training, which is why he got off to kind of a slow start. After coming back from this shoulder injury, I think we're seeing Tatis really coming into full health, and he's showing it at the plate. As you mentioned, 2 homers off Clayton Kershaw on Friday, 2 home runs on Saturday, one of them off Trevor Bauer. So what Fernando Tatis hit that home run, and as he scored, he covered one of his eyes to mock Trevor Bauer, because during spring training, Trevor Bauer bragged about the fact that he was pitching against the Padres with one eye closed. I don't know what the purpose was for that. I think sometimes Trevor Bauer gets a little bored, or maybe he tries to see what sorts of things he can do that may give him an edge. But I think Tatis and the Padres didn't like the fact that Trevor Bauer was bragging about that, so Tatis mocked him with that. And then after he scored following a second home run in the game, he went across home plate doing that kind of Conor McGregor strut. Listeners, you guys are probably familiar with that, with the arms kind of flailing in and out and the legs. And apparently that's something that Trevor Bauer does sometimes, when he finishes off a big inning or gets a big strikeout, that, he comes off the mound doing that Conor McGregor walk. So Tatis also taunting Trevor Bauer with that. But to Trevor Bauer's credit, after the game, he was asked about that, or I should say the next day on Sunday, and Bauer says he didn't have any problem with it. He thinks that players, hitters should be allowed to celebrate, pitchers should be allowed to celebrate. And I tend to agree with him. I think a personality like that is something that baseball needs. I think a little trash talk between division rivals is a really good thing for baseball, and Trevor Bauer seemed to take it in stride, which as much as I think he's a punk. At least, he can
take
dish
it.
it out, but he can also take it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I got to tip the cap for that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's to the point where baseball, we need these kind of rivalries. We need, these type of, I don't want to call them incidents, but these type of kind of like fun opportunities where players can, as you said, Ian, express themselves. And Charlie, baseball is in desperate need of that right now.
Yes, it is. And what a great marketing thing to make people talk about baseball, this, intense rivalry back and forth like that.
Oh, my goodness. Hopefully that's going to continue. And, yeah, good on Trevor Bauer. I'm like, that's really refreshing. Instead of throwing at Tatis the next time he's up, he's like, you know what? I do it too. So what am I going to say on that? And Ian, just 1 month into the season, what other teams have surprised you?
In the NL West, the San Francisco Giants, 14-8, second in the NL West, only one game back of the Dodgers. Gabe Kapler doing a good job managing that club, who really doesn't have, other than maybe Buster Posey, doesn't have too many recognizable names. I don't know if the Giants are going to sustain that in a division with the Padres, with the Diamondbacks. Probably not, but definitely an early season surprise. The Kansas City Royals in the AL Central, currently in first place. I believe they defeated the Detroit Tigers this afternoon, so it should maintain that lead. But, the Minnesota Twins, the Chicago White Sox are the powerhouses in that division, presumably. But the Royals getting it done with pitching and timely hitting. And I think also in the American League, going out to the East, the Boston Red Sox, 14-9, first in the AL East, 2.5 games, first place lead. And the Yankees, maybe in the other direction, a surprise, only 9-12, 4 games back in the AL East. But the Red Sox certainly playing much better than anticipated, than predicted, due to good pitching and great hitting from the likes of J.D. Martinez.
Man, it's nice to see the Royals. That's a great baseball town, home of the Negro League Museum as well as the Royals. Nice to see that. Not far off. Didn't they won a World Series in 2015? So not too far removed from that. Ian, here we go, Charlie. We kind of take Madison Bumgarner is kind of a local guy, from Lenore County. And Mad Bum seems to be having a refreshing reboot to his career. He throws 7 innings of no-hit ball against the Braves, who, by the way, had just 1 hit, I think, in 14 innings, 2 7-inning games due to a doubleheader. But so Mad Bum's on, but Ian, 7 innings, that's an official game. That should be an official no-hitter, but it's not. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I would want to hear what you guys have to say about this, too. Major League Baseball says Madison Bumgarner's effort, since it only was 7 innings, does not count as an official no-hitter. The rules say a no-hitter has to be 9 innings, and that rule was changed, maybe you remember, I think it was 1998, when Andy Hawkins pitched the no-hitter for the Yankees. He was a visiting player, though, and facing the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox did not have to bat in the 9th inning because they had the lead and won the game. So Andy Hawkins only pitched 8 innings. So the commissioner at the time, I believe it was Faye Vincent, said that doesn't count. A no-hitter has to be 9 innings. I go back and forth on this. My first thought is, 7 innings isn't a no-hitter. How many pitchers have a no-hitter and then lose it in the 8th inning or the 9th inning? However, Major League Baseball set it up so that these games are 7 innings. Madison Bumgarner couldn't have pitched 2 more innings in that game unless it was a tie ball game. So he pitched all the innings that were available to him and didn't allow a hit. Shouldn't that be a no-hitter? I really go back and forth on this. I see both sides. I'd be curious what you guys think.
What do you say, Coach?
See, I think no-hitter, and when I went to read the rule, it said a 7-inning game does not count as a no-hitter unless it goes extras. And I'm thinking, now, wait a minute, what if it went 8 innings? But I guess that plural extras, they go on to say it has to be 9 innings. But to me, if it's an official game, it's a no-hitter.
I agree with you on that. That, to me, makes no sense. This is what baseball, because of the pandemic, I get that. You can put an asterisk next to it if you want, but that should be a no-hitter. If it's an official game in the books, it should be a no-hitter.
And if you want to put an asterisk by it, that's fine, but did anybody get a hit? Then it's a no-hitter.
Yeah. Outstanding,
We know
Coach.
the Atlanta Braves did 1 hit in 2 games there. We were talking about the Braves' offensive woes. My goodness, just look at that doubleheader.
God, what did I know? 1 hit and 0 runs. What an embarrassment for them. Hey, but today's a new day, Atlanta. Ian, we got about 45 seconds. The O's and the A's 13-game winning streak. And Ian, I think you may have picked the A's to win the AL West.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling too good about that after the first week of the season.
You are now.
They lost, their first 6 games, I believe. But a 13-game winning streak. And, I guess you could say, well, in 9 of those 13 games, the A's have allowed 3 runs or fewer. I believe 3 shutouts also during that streak. And during the same time, 9 games, the A's have scored 6 or more runs. So scoring a lot of runs, not allowing very many, you're going to win a lot of games. And that's exactly what the A's are doing. However, they only have a 1-game lead in the AL West. So Seattle is playing surprisingly well. The Angels as well. Keep waiting for the Houston Astros to get together and play up to their capabilities. But despite a 13-game winning streak, only a 1-game lead in the AL West, which shows how tight it is there.
Excellent, as always. Wow, way to roll through it, my man. Appreciate you, Ian. That's Ian Castleberry. Follow Ian. He writes for thecomeback.com, also awfulannouncing.com. He's also covered the Dodgers last season for SI.com. Ian, thanks so much, buddy. Appreciate you, my friend.
All right, great talking to you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, man.
See you, man.
Always great to catch up with Ian Castleberry.